Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from BidAmount.com, BidAmountLive.com, and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Thursday, November 11th, 2021. And it's been a while since I've done a video. As many of you know, I was out of commission for all of last week, and I'm now at home recuperating, and I'm going to be here for a while, a couple of months maybe, while we clear some medical issues up. So get used to seeing me here for the time being. The office is still operating. People are still going in there, but I'm not able right now. Let's see here. What's going on? This was the Parry collection. This was a sale that we talked about several weeks ago before it took place over in the UK at Bonhams. It was a very interesting looking sale, and we did a video on it and went over some of the highlights, because this sale was these items were collected at a time when many of the things in this collection were not, so to speak, the hot things of the day. The Parry family bought what they loved, what they liked, would appeal to them aesthetically over all else, and they bought with their taste. So they bought things that were not so much in fashion as other things, mostly from major dealers. They had receipts for everything, and it made it a very interesting sale, including this cover lot, which we'll get to in a minute, because it did very well, as we thought it would. Everybody I spoke to about the sale beforehand thought it would do phenomenally well. I did immediately, and for obvious reasons that we'll get to in a minute. But this is it, and we're going to talk a little bit about the strength of this, the nice strength in the Satsuma market. From their Japanese sale. They had some very, very good results. But I want to get started here on the Parry collection, and we're going to go through some of the lots and talk about how they did and what the story was, okay? And one of the things in the sale was this. There's this very, very nice, rare imperial red lacquer inscribed chrysanthemum-shaped bowl. It ended up selling for many times its high estimate and went for $388,000, which was really quite something. A beautiful, beautiful example, beautiful ribbing in pristine condition. The condition in this collection was a big part of why it all did so very well. Absolutely spectacular. All right, and then moseying on over to this. We talked about this because I thought it was just a really, really nice vase, Kangxi period, with that beautiful powder blue ground with gilding, a nice looking lid on it with wire, silver inlaid, carved wood lid. Just beautiful all the way over. And it was estimated very modestly, 800 to I think 1,000 pounds or something like that. And it went right through that and ended up selling for $7,234 US, or 5,300 pounds. So about 5 times its high estimate. And this is sort of what happened through the whole sale. Everything, many of the pieces sold in multiples of their high estimates, 5 and 10 times their high estimates. All right, and this was just one of them, but a really, really a beautiful example. Absolutely loved this thing. The shape was nice. It was around 8 or 9 inches tall, but the gilding on it was in excellent condition, and it was pretty. It was just plain pretty. Just a beautiful example, and it had this very nicely done carved lid on top of it. The lid wasn't original to it, of course, but a nice looking addition. And then it's a little big for it, but I still like it. And then we've talked about that. And then over here to the bell. This was a archaistic bell, very, very small rock crystal, smoky rock crystal. It had a very modest estimate, again, $800 to $1,200 or something like that, and ended up selling for 3,570 pounds or $4,823. And in the last video, when we talked about it, I thought that seemed awfully reasonable, and that, going up to 5,000 wouldn't be at all unreasonable for this. The carving on this was just excellent, and smoky, rocky quartz is fairly unusual stuff. And this was just a beautiful little example. It was only a few inches tall, but the surface, the polish, the details of the beast heads, and this relief work was all wonderfully well done, all the way down the piece. Absolutely great. And I hope one of you got that. I hope some of you got some things out of this estate, because it was worth doing. And then on to this, some really, really rare pieces. This was the very rare imperial 2-color cinnabar lacquered Yixing teapot. And what this means is, of course, that it was a lacquered teapot that they put over a Yixing body. Let's see if we can get the picture to enlarge here. Oh, come on. There it is. All right. Just a wonderful example, and the carved lacquer work on it was stupendous. Just absolutely stupendous all the way up, and how often do you come across these? You just don't. They don't turn up often. I tried to find some comps for it, and I really couldn't. Lacquer over Yixing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece. And it went for, I think, about 3 times its high estimate, as I recall. Let's see here. What was the, yeah, it was 7 inches long, so it was fairly small, but still very, very nice. Exceptional. And this was one of the things the family collected. They collected a lot of lacquer, and Chinese lacquer can be up and down and sideways, but the pieces they bought because they were of exceptional carving quality, and we're going to get into a few more of them. One of them was this really, really rare gilt and brown lacquered phoenix Qilong stem bowl, late Ming Dynasty, and just look at this, just great. And it's, reminiscent, looking back to examples were done during the Sung Dynasty, Sung cups and so forth. But the quality of this is just mind-boggling. When you look at the groundwork and you look at the absolute perfection of the carving, the finish, the tone, the shape. The shape was absolutely perfect all the way up, proportion and scale, and this beautifully curved outer edge. Little things like this, how the lip just rolls under a little bit and then slides down under and then straight drop down to this flared, nicely, gently flared base. And you have a toad down here and all kinds of things going on. Just a fantastic rarity. And again, many times its estimate, selling for $236,000. I think it was estimated at $50,000 to $70,000, something like that. And this was not unusual for this sale. And then on to this, the fine cloisonne enameled screen on stand. A very beautiful example, again, for about 3 times its high estimate. But what a piece of work this is. The cloisonne work, the enameling, the style of decoration, the way the waves were done. And then, of course, you have this spectacular frame that it was mounted into. Just a very, very evocative package for the collector. And 17th century, 49 centimeters, 19 inches tall. So it was good size. It wasn't a small table stand. It was a nice size stand. And a lot of interest in that. A lot of interest in that. And this is what we saw through here, was that the sort of not the porcelain lot so much, but this family focused on lacquer, enamels, cloisonne, and cinnabar. Those were the really, really strong areas. And what they bought were only the best pieces. And as we said a couple weeks ago, they bought a lot of it from mostly top London dealers like Spinks and so forth. All right, and then we talked about this charming little sort of alms bowl, cloisonne. I thought it had a very modest estimate, $800 to $1,200 or $1,000 to $1,500 estimate. But I just thought it was a very nice example all the way around. And it ended up selling, in the end, it did great. It brought $5,355 or $7,234 US, but unusual, and in beautiful condition. Very, very nice. And then there was this. I'm not sure, but this might be a record for a month cup. It was estimated at about $70,000 to $100,000 or something like that, or so. And but a very, very rare one. Beautifully done, beautiful colored enamels, delicate, beautiful soft blues. The lotus blossoms, the lotus pods were all done beautifully, and then the flowing leaves and all this, and then the way the water was put in gently with the 2 ducks. And it ended up selling for $574,000. And I don't remember a month cup ever bringing that much money. If somebody does, let me know. Kangxi period, extremely rare. You remember a year or so ago, there was a sale of month cups, and everybody thought it was amazing. They were all bringing $100,000 to $150,000. Well, here you are, almost 4.5 times that for this one. And they had another one that did bring in $150,000, but this one really went through the roof. All right, and then we had discussed this. This is the box set with this is a table box, Imperial Cinnabar table box that opens up, and it has these inner boxes and so forth. But a very, very rare set. You don't see them anymore. And it's got Tianqi lacquered interior, and then the exterior is carved red lacquer. Beautiful example. Ended up selling for $143,000, or about 3 times its estimate. Again, quality, condition, and fresh back to the market after a long period of time. This was bought from Spink and Sons in 1925. It has been off the market ever since and stayed with the family. And then on to this, the main event. This was the incredibly rare enameled teapot, spectacular melon-formed low body, gilded spout, gilded handle with dragons. and a rather interesting mark on the bottom. They mark them often within cartouches, but this is the only one I'd seen, and they did a study on them for this, and it was the only one they'd ever seen with a dragon's head coming off the rondelle, off this sort of rococo rondelle on the base. And really just exceptionally fine Qinlong period. Ended up selling for $2.7 million, $2,786,000. And this pot was exhibited in the famous 1930s exhibition in London, and it was just simply listed as 18th century enamel teapot, because at that time they weren't considered to be of that much importance. I mean, they shared it, they showed it because it was a very nice example, but it was considered nowhere close to other things that were being exhibited as far as importance and rarity goes. And since then, knowledge of the Beijing workshops and the rarity of these has become much more appreciated. So when examples like this turn up, they're getting their due as far as the market value goes. So 2.7 million, I think it was estimated around 300,000 or 400,000. So it would end up going for about 6 times its high estimate. And then over here to this, a really rare pair of marking period black-ground cinnabar lacquered bowls. A pair of these, no less. And these were bought, let's see, where were these at? Just as Parry, oh right, they didn't know where these came from. I suspect they probably came from Spinks or somebody, but they didn't know at the time of the sale. But here they are. But the condition on them is almost impossible to believe. They're absolutely perfect from what I can see. There's not even any wear on the feet of these. There's a tiny bit of peeling here, a couple of places where the lacquer came off, but no wear, no damage that I can see in any of the pictures they provided. A few minor little top rim splits up here, but that's which is what you expect to see. If you don't see anything, if you don't see this kind of stuff, be suspicious even. But this thing was just, these were both absolutely beautiful right down to the bottom. There was a lot of interest in these. And they ended up selling for $287,000. Again, about 5 times their high estimate. And just continuing this amazing trend. And then there was this bronze gui. I had talked about this because I thought the estimate was awfully low, 10 to 15,000, and I just thought the shape and the proportions of this were just so wonderful. The height of the foot rim, these bandings going around the foot, and then converting out over this very nicely potted side with the edge of the pot just slightly going out over the handles, and these beautifully done handles with a very finely done archaistic band around the midsection here. All this work here. Let that picture load fully. It'll get sharper. Come on, load up. Let's go. There it goes. And now you can really see the detail of how finely done the groundwork was on this archaistic area. Just beautifully done. And the patina on this was warm, cocoa, beautiful and undisturbed. And then these lovely gilt splashes with some Arabic at the bottom. All right, which makes it even rarer because these pots with the Arabic on them are very rare. But they typically don't have all this other business up top with the archaistic work and so forth. They just have some script for the Islamic market. This one had both, which made it quite unusual. Ended up selling for $51,000, about 4 times its high estimate, roughly 3 or 4 times its high estimate. But I'm not at all surprised. Again, off the market for a long period of time, and this was also something in the Parry family collection that they didn't have a receipt for, unfortunately. And then over here to this, the pair of screens, Z10 framed kingfisher feather and inlaid screens. These were stupendous. Beautiful Z10 frames holding them together. And the shading, the amazing visual effect that the artist was able to put to work here with the light raking over the, it implies the light raking over the mountains. And then the way they carved these clouds into it with pine trees at the top going up into the clouds and coming down. The whole thing is just a fabulous assemblage all the way down to the bottom, and a single figure on a stone bridge looking up, admiring the landscape. Classic, just absolutely classic. And a lot of people fell in love with this thing. It ended up, I think, about a little more than doubling its high estimate, selling for $709,641. These were pretty good size, though, too. They were also good size. These were also exhibited in London at that exhibition. They were 22 inches tall, all right, which is good size, all right. And moseying on out of that sale over to fine Chinese works of art. There were a couple of lots in there. I'm going to also the general Chinese works of art sale did quite well too. And I'm going to maybe do a separate video on that, more for the dealer collector people that are shopping on a slightly more modest budget, because there were some very good buys that went through there, and I hope some of you took part in it because there were some very excellent buys. One of the things that sold in here was this pair of Guangzhou flambe glazed red Hu-form vases. Beautifully done, and they were estimated, I think, at $10,000 to $15,000 US. But there was a lot of interest in them because the colors I thought were so nice, just so nice down the sides, and the pair ended up selling for $66,000, which is a very strong price for Guangzhou market period pieces. All right, as we all know, they typically sell in the $15,000 to $25,000, maybe $30,000 or so range. But these just took off. But copper redwares in general, those things have done very well lately, particularly those rich red monochromes. And this may be, a continuation of that. And then the chestnut ground imperial robe. I think this was probably Yongchen period. Do they say? Yeah, Yongchen period. Sold for $101,666. But a beautiful example, and Linda Rigglesworth, the textile experts, have been working with Bonhams, helping them with some of these, I believe. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful robe. And the lattice work on the ground here with all this blue in the background. You don't see it until you pull it in, and then you realize that not only is there all the all the embroidery work that's obvious, the colored pieces, the birds flying, the bats, and all this, and then when you look at it a little bit closer, you see that there's all this lattice of groundwork against the background, and then these cocoa brown sleeves and auspicious bats everywhere, coral. All kinds of great little designs. It's always fun to look at these up close and pluck out visually the symbols, and the expressions on the dragons' faces are absolutely great. Love the faces on these two dragons. Really, really, really charming. Happy, smiling, not ferocious, not at all scary. And this is an interesting aspect that you don't often see on these robes. At the bottom where they have the splashing waves coming in and all these wave skirts down at the bottom, you don't often see buildings on them. Here you have two buildings that are on the top on the shore with the waves lapping up against the buildings, which is a rather unusual feature. And I hope the person, maybe part of the reason why somebody bought it, there's an atypical pattern. And these lines now, they're serpentine coming down. Instead of going radiating out straight, they're sort of curved and sinuous in their movement. And it did really well, about $101,666. Very good. And then over here, they had the Japanese sale. And now in the Japanese sale, it was a little bit spotty. The cloisonne did okay. Some of them did, some of them didn't. Or the prices were still a little bit soft. Swords, Manuki, all that did just fine. The Manuki sale, all the Manuki lots, remember there were a number of Manuki lots where they had 8, 10, 15 pieces of Manuki for the sword fittings. They all seemed to bring in the $1,800 to $3,000 range. And the block prints did pretty well. But what really did well were these, the Satsuma pieces, things like this. This absolutely great example done by Yabu Maizan. This one, these are small. This is a 4-inch tall example. Brought $22,290. $292. This was small, right? Yeah, 4 1/4 inches tall. But a really wonderful little example. And there were a number of lots by this artist in here, and they all did great. They all did great, but the quality is there. And I think we've seen some resurgences in interest in Japanese ceramics. They also had one of these big chargers, the kind that you see fairly often around, and the ones that always seem to bring $350, $400. And lately, I've noticed a number of those large chargers now are starting to edge up in price. So if you have one, be glad you own them, because they seem to be selling in the $600 to $1,000 range now, and more for particularly good ones. And that market was as soft as Jello for quite a long time, and so forth. And this sold for $22,000. And then this other piece, this really charming bowl with all the figures on it, another Maizan piece, beautiful, beautiful quality. I suspect these all came from the same collection. And they were very good to include the marks for the artist on the bottom if you don't have them readily available. I would suggest anytime you have these sites share the marks, you should always download and have a folder on your computer or on your phone for Satsuma marks, for example, for Kutani marks, and for all marks. But you should have them segregated with the name of the mark. They are absolutely invaluable, especially if you're out looking around. This did very, very well. It brought $45,935, but it's a rare Maison form, and it was in spectacular condition. All the gilding was perfect on it. And then there's another Maison. This is another small vase, but absolutely beautifully done. This beautiful, beautiful beaker with all the figures carrying things, and the work tables out. Here we go. Here's the ground loading up. All the way down to the bottom, and there's these spectacular floral sprays that Maison was particularly known for. You saw it on the first piece. You're seeing it here again. This was a ground motif that he used often to fill in cartouches, to fill in open areas where he wanted to put something so that it kept you. It was nice to look at, but it kept your eye on the subject matter, which was all of the figures and doing various things. And then these beautiful wisteria plants hanging down from around the rim. Very, very attractive. And this vase wasn't big. This wasn't a big beaker. It was 7.5 inches tall. Ended up selling for $25,670. Great thing. And this was very nice too. I just threw this in because I've been working with an identification assistant customer in France who's a big Lacquer fan, he and his wife, and they've been sending me pictures of Japanese lacquer pieces that are being auctioned in Japan these days, and they are all suddenly Japanese lacquer. The best pieces are really doing well. There was a smoking set that brought $12,000 or $15,000 just recently over there in Japan, and I was curious to see how this one did. This is a late Meiji to Taisho period example, but beautiful quality, and it ended up selling for $12,000, and I think that's a bit of an improvement over what we've seen in the last 5 or 10 years ago. I think the market was considerably softer then. This one was a nice one. It had beautiful metal mounts on it. The lacquer work was excellent. And there's a story that goes on with the scene depicted where that building is and so forth. So it makes it, of course, quite interesting. It had a beautifully done interior that opens up into another landscape and so forth, with the flower card on the right-hand side and so forth. So it had a lot of things going for it, and ended up selling for $1,258. And you'll notice that they say Meiji to Taisho, Meiji or Taisho period. People often say, is this just Meiji or is it Taisho? There wasn't a rapid transition in style of work between the Meiji and the Taisho period. You have to understand that. Was that the lacquer workers just kept working. So styles evolved slowly. So you could have something that was very much Meiji in appearance, made in the Taisho period. That's all. It's just a few years later, and they didn't, flip a switch when one era ended. Neither did they in China, and suddenly doing something entirely different right away. It was sort of an evolution. And then lastly was this, one of the niftiest little recumbent netskis I've seen in a long time. I loved this little thing. I love this thing. It was a beautiful little seated Kirin. And I'm going to finish with this because it was just a beautiful example. The surface on it, the expression, the overall carving, the compactness, just a little bundle of energy here. Ended up selling for $25,670, and it was signed by Akan, and a major carver of the day. But a beautiful, and that's why he was a major carver of the day, because he did beautiful work. And this was just one of them, all right, and $25,670. So it does seem that there's some life coming back into the old girl yet with Japanese art, which pleases me because I enjoy this stuff very, very much, and I own a fair bit of it, and have for years, and have no plans on never selling it, but it's nice to see that it's getting some appreciation. All right, and that's about it. I will try and maybe do another video in a couple of days as things come along here. We have suspended temporarily the identifications assistant program and the preview assistant because I just can't get to them right now. There are other things going on. So, but once we get over whatever it is I have to do here, we'll put everything back as it was. But for now, this is what we're going to be doing, and we'll be working on the Bonhams Live site. We're going to be focusing more and more on that while I'm at home recovering, and I may be going in for some surgery, which may requires some more recovery. And but we're going to keep plugging. All right. So listen, all of you have a great week, and thank you all for your kind comments, and best regards to my friend Justin for sending me what he did. I appreciate it very, very much. And have a great weekend. All righty. Bye-bye.